So we did our project on Delta Airlines. My name is Jen Beard, and my group members were Anaya and Kaden. So before it was Delta Airlines in 1925, it started off as Huffdale Industries, which was the biggest agricultural fleet in the world at the time. In 1934, it began operating as Delta Airlines once it was sold. And in 1942, Delta Airlines helped with the war effort by modifying 1,000 aircrafts and started training Army men and pilots. And in 1949, it started offering its first coach service. So the first part of the environmental analysis was the economic side, and anything having to do with an economic slowdown can affect a company with profits and purchasing power. So they had to, like for example, in 2008, they had to cut costs and they had a change in purchasing power. And then the socioeconomic status of the traveler always affects how their business is going to be doing, because there's not as much of a demand for traveling, and there's a valuable connection between the general population and the business itself that helps the business gain. For the competition in the airline business, it's fierce, robust, and continuously growing. And small airlines have been growing since 2000 and have a larger market share, which causes a lot more competition between all the airlines. And technology is more significant now than ever before, and innovation is needed for eco-friendliness, range, and comfort. And Delta has stated that they will be going carbon neutral, and they started that in March 2020. And for the global side, there are many laws and limitations that prevent Delta from having flights to everywhere that travelers want to go. So to fight that, they have partnerships with different foreign carriers, and these partners are as efficient as single carriers, and they are able to provide passengers with a seamless service, and they have more attractive offerings compared to if they were just by themselves.
Okay. Shoot. Am I muted or not? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. So the current marketing plan regarding to the objectives and performance. Currently, the entire airline market is on the rise from the main COVID-19 stage that began last March, and for a good period of time, there's a large shutdown, lots of restrictions on where people can travel from which countries to which countries. From the previous year, they did still have a 5.8% revenue change from 2020. And currently they are at the top of, they have the best COVID-19 safety measures. So that's a big attraction for certain customers that feel either less secure, less safe in the airline business. And then regarding their markets, they have a broad range of seating experiences ranging from a Delta 1 to a Premium Select, a Comfort Plus, Basic First Class, and then the Basic Economy. The Basic Economy First Class can kind of vary if you're on an international flight, or how long it is, if you're taking an in-country flight, how long that will end up being. Regarding the target markets and segmentation, they use a mass targeting strategy as they have that most basic economy for those who can't afford a plane ticket and just they got to travel and they got to pay the minimum amount for a ticket, or they just don't want to spend that much. And they use those various segments for customers using a wide span of those 5 different levels of cabin that I spoke on, ranging from that Delta 1 all the way down to the basic economy. And then using these different price ranges, Delta is able to engage both kind of high rollers, people who are willing to spend a lot more for a better experience or on a longer flight, and aren't really caring of the price. And yes, talking about their sustainability and ethics. As of 2020, right before COVID did hit, they committed to a 10-year, $1 billion plan to become the world's first carbon neutral airline. So during this 10-year plan, they have vowed to cap greenhouse gas emissions at their 2012 levels. So not going any above that. What that means, modifying their current planes, which they are doing. They're retiring, I believe it is 235 aircrafts, and then replacing those with newer planes that are 25% more fuel efficient than those that retired, which are worse. And then it is difficult for an airline to promote itself as for the environment due to its emissions, but people still have to travel for business, for vacations. It's not going to stop anytime soon. And then we get into the marketing mix here. The main product is their intangible service of being able to move mass amounts of people from place to place with their fleet of planes, which is one of the largest in the world. And the tangible part of Delta's is their entire flight experience. This being your plane ride, your seat, the actual service, food, whatever you're being given on board in the cabin from the stewards. And then the pricing is a key aspect of engaging certain customers. So they have a wide span of pricing options. That price range can attract various classes of people, thanks to variation and targeting of all of those different segments, different prices, different seating experiences. And then currently they're using a fuel hedging strategy, which keeps fuel pricing consistent. So they're able to kind of regulate it compared to other airlines, and then that keeps the overall pricing of plane tickets consistent. Talking about the place of the marketing mix, they have a network of over 300 destinations in 50 countries, all those different airports, majority of them being overseas. They use advertising and targeting through travel websites using various cookies, tracking codes, and strategies. So that their major hubs include Los Angeles, New York, London, Paris, Tokyo, and plenty of others. As you can take a look at that map, they cover air everywhere. And then their promotion aspect. They use very heavy physical and digital advertising. They have a good balance for their promotion. They use ads connecting. They target consumers using travel websites, such as, either other airlines or just general airport websites, travel websites, hotel websites, whether those just be Delta ads or anything else in that realm. And then physical promotion includes, they have just typical billboards along highways, interstates, near those major hubs I talked about, banners just in stadiums. Speaking of that, they have quite a few sponsors, their biggest being 6 Major League Baseball teams and the US Olympic team.
So I'm going to go into a bit of the SWOT analysis, which is analyzing Delta's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Clearly, as we know, Delta is currently leading the US and global airline industry, which is a strength in and of itself. This can be seen, in 2018, the DOT data said that Delta had carried over about 152 million passengers. And they also have strong business customer relationships, and Delta prides themselves on things like reliability, their customer loyalty, and the benefits that they're able to provide their customers for that loyalty. It overall creates a really good image for them. And they also have good service and offer many options, as Kaden was talking about, through that segmentation to draw in a pretty large target market. They have high profit margins. Again, they're leading the airline industry in that. And as of the end of 2020, even with COVID, their gross profit margin was about 71%, which is really good. They have a large fleet size and network, which involves their multiple locations, again, 300 travel destinations, and they reach about 50 countries. They also have some international partnerships that help with that. Their fleet size is about 700 aircraft, which again is one of the largest in the world. And many of those they own and are able to have concurrent partnerships with regional carriers because of that. Again, their network of hubs is large, and they have main hub areas that they're able to transport customers between. And they have joint venture alliances with foreign companies, which really gives them that global advantage. Some of those companies include Virgin Atlantic, Air France, Aero Mexico, Virgin Australia, KLM, and Korean Airlines. So that gives a pretty round element of networking. And then lastly is their brand recognition. They just have a really clean, well-known brand that's associated with a good flying experience. And they've really kind of advertised that with the rise of digital marketing, and again, their travel partnerships with many other travel brands like Lyft and Airbnb, just to get their brands kind of out there among the traveling market. Next is their weaknesses. They are over-reliant on the North American market, as Delta is primarily an American company. They do have good global expansion, obviously. However, being within primarily America, that leaves them very vulnerable to our country's environmental influences. And we've seen that especially this year with the pandemic. America has not handled it very well, and that's been really impactful on businesses like airlines, especially. With those political influences and economic influences, airlines have just taken a huge hit, especially as travelers aren't allowed to travel or aren't, not feeling as comfortable with travel. Delta is known to have really expensive ticket prices compared to their competitors. And while they're able to target a market that's more willing to pay for those expensive prices, it still doesn't really allow them to bring in that wider market range or, more casual flyers that, for example, Southwest might be able to bring in. And then Delta has high debt obligations and kind of a poor financial reputation. They had a bit of a weak financial stint in the mid-2000s when they declared bankruptcy. And they racked up about $3.7 billion of long-term debt as of 2016, and that's only increasing, especially this year with the pandemic. As you can see in the graph to the right, that's kind of just Delta's snapshot of debt over the last 2 years, and the one at the end is the 2020 Q2 long-term current and cash debt. And as you can see, that's just been growing over the last 2 years. So they just don't have a very good reputation in that standing. Although, they have those weaknesses, they also have many opportunities that they've been able to make specific to their brand, such as their Sky Miles program. This gives them kind of an edge up, especially with corporate business, like corporate travelers, and being able to have miles and, get benefits for their loyalty. This gives Delta a lot of leverage and control, especially since they don't have expiration dates on any like extra miles that their customers may get. So that gives a really good customer relationship. And then just generally, there's been an increase in air travel demand over the last 10-ish years, and that is due to generational influence. So millennials and Gen Z right now are willing to spend the most on plane tickets and travel expenses. And we've been seeing that especially recently. So I think it could be a really good opportunity for Delta to kind of tailor their services to that age demographic, especially, through the next 10, 15 years that they would be their main travelers. And then again, Delta just does a really good job of taking advantage of digital marketing in the way that that's growing with their partnerships and advertisements through the media. And then lastly is Delta's threats. Obviously, competition is a constant threat. The airline industry is one of the most competitive industries. I think one of their main competitors right now is Southwest, as we're going to see in the case study soon. Southwest offers cheaper ticket prices, and again, they're able to kind of bring in that wider target market for more casual flyers. Again, the financial threats with high regulation, tax burdens, and especially the increase in operation expenses, particularly fuel, and then raw materials and labor. Delta saw about a $4 billion increase in operation expenses just between 2017 and 2018, and that's a pretty big jump. And then the obvious is the global pandemic. Quarantine situations and epidemics have always been a threat to companies like airlines, and unfortunately, we've seen this come to be a reality this year. Customers don't feel safe traveling or are not allowed to travel, and Delta has had to kind of tackle that problem of being able to get their customers back onto their aircrafts. But I think they've handled it really well, and that's a really good opportunity for growth as we go forward in the pandemic.
Okay, so talking about the case study, I looked at Delta versus a big competitor being Southwest. So that main product, talking about Southwest, they don't have any real differentiation or relative segmentation in their targeting, and because they don't have a divided upper or lower class, and then that another big factor is they have a smaller reach across the globe, being 15 countries, all close to the US. So while Delta is able to kind of have legitimate hubs of their own in quite a few places across quite a few oceans through other airlines, Southwest hubs are all in the Caribbean, South America. They don't have a quite as big of a reach, while Delta has lots of differentiation in those target markets, and you have plenty of segmentation to reach various groupings of different classes. And then, as I talked about, they have a much larger reach, talking about 50 plus countries around the world with the 300 various destinations.